we're starting on this shape. It's like a bunch of berries. It's a cluster, and certainly I'm just putting some basic tonality in. They are a group of individual ball shapes, spheres, and that has to be considered. But we also have to consider that the whole thing appears as a mass that I've just sketched out the shape of here. So that mass would be illuminated from the side, and you would have a larger shadow at the back, at the base there, and to the one side of the tip that points up. I'll just blend this and smooth out the tonalities. Using the eraser, the kneaded eraser, to remove some of the charcoal so that I'm back to the base color of the brown paper. To apply this to the bunch of berries, I'm going to be working more shadows on the individual berries, and I'm also going to be finding a larger area of dark at the base and to the one side of the tip. There are several types of shadows to consider here. You have the individual ball with shaded like a sphere. You have cast shadows, which would appear as one berry sits on top of another. And then you have the whole shape, the general mass that has to be defined as well. I can then continue in a way where I'm defining individual berries and I'm also defining the shape. The berries on the dark side of the bunch would have a tonal range that would go from a medium dark to a dark, and the berries on the light side would have a tonal range from white to the tone of the paper to a light charcoal. I'll go back in now and pull out some of those lighter values. First by erasing, getting back to the tonality of the paper, and then I will add some very few highlights with white. You'll notice that I'm still respecting the shading of the individual berries. Now let's move on to this little umbrella of petals. I'm just bringing out the outline again a little bit so we can see it, the direction of the light. Starting again, putting in some basic coverage with the charcoal. I left the area where I know there's a highlight. This time I didn't cover it with charcoal. And I'm just moving in to all the areas and I'll blend that. Now I'll go in and strengthen some of the darks. I'm reclaiming some of the lighter areas with the kneaded eraser. I can go in and define the petals, the divisions between the petals, very delicately. Let's look now at this group of leaves. Start by defining the middle, the spine of the leaf, and I'm retracing the outline slightly where I can't see it anymore. I'll start by putting in a base tone, just a basic coverage with the charcoal. I'm darkening the area where this leaf comes out from behind the other leaf. The type of shading on leaves is generally a smooth transition, like a fade. Doing a small example here. Because the surface is flat, it's probably a good idea to practice this type of shading that goes from one tonality to the next, usually not a dramatic value shift. That's what's going on this leaf, a value shift from a medium to a dark. Now we can start covering the rest of the group of leaves. I will darken the side farthest from the light. So this way I've created a light side and a dark side, and that's fitting to the shape that I'm describing. It's basically a cone that's illuminated from one side and darker on the other side. I'll start defining this leaf that curls around, putting some shadow at the base where it comes out from underneath the other leaf. If I decide that this leaf is concave, I'll shade this side of it darker, at least until it curves out of the light. I'm just adding a little bit of softening shadow on the side of the light. Now, as the leaf turns away from the light, I'm going to be adding some more shadowing on this part. I'll come back in and reinforce the darks. I'll add some highlight on the illuminated part of the leaf and blend it a little bit. Here I'll catch a sharp edge, the thickness of the leaf. For this small leaf, the final one of the group, I will start with deciding which side should be darker and laying in the basic coverage of charcoal and blending. I can add now some bright highlights, edges, just very fine lines, as if the light is catching the thickness of the leaf. And this is a very effective way to get the leaf to come out from the ground and from leaves next to it that are of similar value. I can also use my kneaded eraser to touch up some of the edges and the shapes, define them a little bit better. Now I'll just do some edges also with the black and reinforce some of the darks. I've reinforced some of the darks here, and I've made the smaller leaf slightly lighter along the edge as it sits on top of the cone shape, and that just helps with the overall group, the shape of the overall group of leaves. That completes this exercise, and look out for the final video, part 3, on how to complete the shading on this ornament.